Good evening, everyone. I'm David Weiss, the mayor, and I just wanted to join at the beginning of the meeting tonight to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. This is a very exciting process. We've got a great team put together to help us come up with a long-range recreation strategic plan. And so your feedback and your input are not only welcome, but very important to make sure that this process is a success, and we have a long-range plan for recreation in the city. So with that, I will turn it over to our consulting team and our city team to lead us away. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Cullen Mavis. I am the PIC for this project and associate principal with MKSK. We are here to walk through our current progress on the Shaker Heights Recreation Strategic Plan. This is our first virtual public meeting, and we're really happy to have you joining us tonight. Just to reiterate some of the kind of housekeeping that Carol went over, we will be taking Q&A, and you can answer or ask a question at any point during the presentation. Just type it into the chat box that pops up with the Q&A icon, and then we'll be answering those at the end of the presentation. And also, we very much encourage everyone to participate in the 6 polls that will be popping up on the screen throughout this presentation. We'd love to hear your feedback. So just to kind of introduce the team that you have here with you tonight. So this effort is led by the City of Shaker Heights, and our primary partners in this are Mayor Weiss, Director of Planning Joyce Braverman, Principal Planner Kara Hamley, and Director of Parks and Recreation Alex Nichols. They are our guiding team on this. Here with me tonight is Michael Mears, the project manager and also a Shaker resident. He'll be presenting later in the evening some of the engagement and information that we've heard throughout this process. We also have Abby Lawless from MKSK here on the call to help with questions, and Kevin Dreyfus-Wells from our RDL team is also on. So MKSK is serving as the prime consultant for this project. We lead the park planning, urban design, and community engagement components. We're teamed with RDL, who are providing our creative building reuse, design, and program planning, and also Pros Consulting, which is a firm that specializes in benchmarking and needs assessment, and you'll be seeing some of their research later on tonight. So for tonight's agenda, we've covered introductions. We're gonna give you a little bit of the project background and purpose, why we're undertaking this effort, talk about existing conditions and some of the park overviews for each of the sites that we'll be reviewing. We'll walk through each of those sites and provide all of the engagement summaries and overviews that we've obtained to date. We'll go through a little bit of what's next in this process and then open it up to Q&A. So here's our first poll question. Please feel free to answer, what Shaker Heights neighborhood are you joining us from? We really want to know where everyone is joining from tonight. Looks like we're about halfway there in responses.
Okay. Looks like most of the people have answered it, Cullen. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results.
So it looks like we have participants here from Boulevard, Fernway, Malvern, and Sussex. So welcome. Glad to have you.
Great, thanks, Cullen. I'm going to jump in here and talk a little bit of the project background and purpose, and sort of how we've gotten to this point with this sort of strategic recreation plan, and where we think we want to go during this process. As you know, the City of Shaker Heights has done a lot of planning and a lot forward thinking, whether it comes to the Forward Together vision plan, thinking about the school building and their assessments, or the Lee Road action planning and thinking about that corridor on the southwest portion of the city. So really what we're trying to do here is sort of build on all of those efforts and really see how some of those efforts have touched some of the project sites that we're talking here today. Obviously, when we think about Forward Together, the middle school site is a key component of that, but then also the Lee Road action plan and how that affects and sort of does a forward-looking vision for both Shelton Park and the Stephanie Tubbs Jones sort of building area and sort of community quadrant that we're calling it. So really, in addition to the background for all the different projects and efforts that the city is looking at, what we're looking at for this plan is sort of two sort of distinct and different phases. Right now, we're working on the current plan, which is really a vision and framework for recreation in Shaker Heights. Really here, what we're trying to think of high-level conceptual facility plans for 4 strategic sites throughout the community. And really, this plan is really focusing on community engagement and really understanding the needs and what the vision of those 4 sites may look like moving forward. In the future, the city is going to look at operations and implementation plan. And really here, that's sort of focusing on how can we take this vision and really turn it into action. And that will sort of highlight a little bit additional items like phasing, financing, and partnerships and best practices. So under this process, we're really going to think about visioning and really do some analysis and sort of preliminary cost estimates, while the future plan will really focus on how can those sort of conceptual facility plans based on those estimates be implemented and sort of built out, whether it's in the near term or in the long term. So the purpose of the plan is really, not only, as the mayor mentioned, to sort of engage with the residents and really focus on developing a long-term recreation plan that prioritizes improvements to those 4 select sites that we're really looking at and really going to talk to you about today. And really the goal here is just to provide high quality amenities for all neighborhoods and residents. We know Shaker parks are really accessible and scattered throughout the community. So we want to make sure that all of those parks and all the neighborhoods have really the high quality amenities that Shaker provides in all of their services. So the goals and objectives of the plan, key element here is to evaluate each site, really understanding its size, its context, the locations, and the challenges that it's currently facing and what some of those opportunities are, and really what the people of Shaker really think those opportunities may, develop into. And then really, as I mentioned before, we want to create a vision plan that serves the diverse population and the diverse neighborhoods throughout Shaker Heights. And then lastly, we want to think about these other 2 is these facilities really have a great opportunity for not only improving parks and recreation in Shaker, but really bringing people together around parks and recreation and different activities. And really this framework, as I mentioned before, is really meant to prioritize next steps and really create that launching pad for really implementing the recommendations that we outline here in this plan. So the timeline for the process is estimated to about 12 to 13 months. Right now, we're in the community vision and strategic planning phase, which is sort of the phase 3, and really launching and sort of continuing that community engagement that we really think is a key element of this process. As we wrap up community engagement, we'll really start looking at the strategic planning and the conceptual layout of these different sites and really developing, what the recommendations may and could look like moving forward. After we develop those community, engagement processes and those strategic plans, we'll start to develop our plan creation in phase 4, which is really putting pen to paper and really showing to the community what some of these conceptual plans and options may look like. So who's involved with the project? It really starts with us and the city of Shaker and the staff that Cullen mentioned earlier, and then building off that, what we try to focus on is spreading our engagement across the community. And this begins with the advisory group, who are a series of individuals who volunteered to sort of participate in this process and were selected to provide their different perspectives, throughout the Shaker community. And we meet with this group 4 times during this process as a really key touch point in terms of ideas and recommendations that could be included in the plan. From there, we have the stakeholder groups, or specific individuals represent different sports leagues, different community institutions in and around in Shaker who have a vested interest in sort of recreation programming and activities throughout the community. And then last, we have Shaker residents, folks tuning in tonight, and hopefully folks that will attend our public meeting tomorrow, and people that have participated in the engagement opportunities that we've had to date. And really, this is our goal of trying to cast a wide net and gather a wide variety of feedback and input from the diverse neighborhoods and people within the city of Shaker Heights. So real quick, I'll stop here for another poll question. What we're asking here is how often do you visit a park or participate in recreation activities in Shaker?
Looks like most people answered. I'm going to close the poll.
Okay. Looks like we got a pretty wide variety of people from most days all the way up to not participating or very rarely. So hopefully some of these improvements will get people more out in and out to Shaker Heights Park and Recreation. So one more poll question here is how important are parks and recreation to the quality of life for residents?
Okay, give it another few seconds for people to weigh in. Okay, it looks like the majority of people have answered that question, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Great. Thanks, Kara. Not surprisingly, based on some of the feedback we've heard today, parks and recreation are very important to the people of Shaker Heights. So we'll continue on with some of the background and analysis. What we've done is also look at existing conditions in park and recreation in Shaker. And really, this is our way of developing a comprehensive view of the Shaker Heights facilities, their condition, where they're located, what's there. And this starts with an inventory and sort of plan review of what the existing facilities and amenities are and where they're located and what their current state is. From there, using our partners at PROS, we've developed a lot of recreation trends and analysis, really looking at what insight and what we can find from trends in recreation, both locally and throughout the country. And then also what we've done is some community benchmarking where we've selected specific communities that are like Shaker in terms of size and demographics to really determine, how Shaker stands amongst those communities, both in terms of size, cost, amenities available, and other elements. And really the goal here with all of our plans is try to make them be community driven, but also enrich them with data so we can make informed decisions and see if we can find opportunities where both the data and the community vision align to create a really well-rounded and really detailed plan. So the parks and recreation sites are scattered throughout Shaker in all the different neighborhoods. One of the key elements about the Shaker plan, and I guess it's not unique to other communities, is that some of the sites that we utilize every day are school sites. So we know that there are playgrounds and ball fields and soccer fields on each one of the school sites. So really what we've done in our analysis is make sure we take a comprehensive view and include all of those sites in our analysis to really understand what facilities are out there, what are people using, how many there are of each ball field, each playground, each park, and really understanding what the total count is. So then that way, when we think about recommendations, we're really understanding how and what people are using and what's out there. So when looking at just specific Shaker Heights park and recreation sites and not looking at the schools, there are 11 total parks, 27 outdoor recreation facilities, 2 indoor recreation facilities, and 140 acres maintained by the Parks and Recreation Department. So building off just the baseline of data and sites, what we examined national and local trends for participation, programming, and activity throughout the country using our partners at PROS and their data and analysis. And really looking at this, we know in terms of national trends, team sports have recovered from pandemic and they've returned into near 2019 levels. Really, people have started to sign up and get back into team sports after possibly taking a break during the pandemic. We know pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports and has doubled participation since 2022. And other growing sports throughout the country include yoga, Pilates, indoor climbing, hiking, gymnastics, volleyball, and softball. And some of those communities, if you think about Shaker Rocks, have already sort of taken off here in the community as well. That analysis went and took a deeper dive in looking at local trends to really understand if there are some potential markets or potential opportunities that don't exist in Shaker that maybe are gaps in services provided. These could include things like tennis and golf, fitness activities like aerobics, Pilates, weightlifting, outdoor activities that we know are popular like hiking and biking, or other sort of recreation activities, book clubs, art galleries, museums, or live entertainment. So when looking further into detail and in terms of our existing conditions analysis, we did community benchmarking. And what we did here is we selected peer communities that we considered like Shaker in terms of size, demographics, population makeup, and then benchmarked all of those communities in a variety of metrics, from population to acres managed to transportation and access in parks, all the way down to revenue, capital budget, and number of programs offered. So here's an example of what that benchmarking looks like. You can see here that Shaker Heights is pretty typical in terms of the size of population, its jurisdiction size, and the population per square mile compared to the other communities, which is really good example of how these peer communities were selected and sort of create an environment where the comparisons are really good across all different demographics and different metrics. So when we go further into the benchmarking, we can see that Shaker, again, is pretty typical in its total operating expense and how much of that operating expense compares to other city budgets. There's a few communities here that are outliers when we look at Reynoldsburg and even Cleveland Heights, but typically Shaker is about the same as most of the other communities we benchmarked in terms of their operating expense and how much they spend on parks and recreation as compared to their total city budget. And then we also looked at the programs offered and how much revenue is generated by those programs. We know Shaker offers a lot of different parks and recreation programs throughout the year, and the total budget for those programs is $2 million. And really right now, Shaker recovers about 55% of that cost from the programs through fees for each one of those different activities. And again, this is pretty typical across all the other communities we looked at. There's only one community that we found that actually creates sort of either meets or exceeds the revenue generated by the programs, with all other communities running at a deficit. So some of the takeaways from those high-level existing conditions looking at a comprehensive view of Shaker is we know it has a diverse set of park and recreation offerings that are spread throughout the community, and they're widely accessible for all the different neighborhoods. There has been some changing trends in recreation and demands, and some of the facility ages in Shaker have resulted in the need to upgrade or invest in parks, specific parks, and overall Shaker Heights Park and Recreation. The school and control facilities and a sort of blend of city controlled and school controlled does create great opportunities, but also provides some challenges for shared uses. Shaker Heights Recreation is about typical in comparison to its peer communities, and its stable, well-performing Parks and Recreation department does have some operations and chances for growth. So one quick poll question here again, as Kara mentioned, is how satisfied are you with the Parks and Recreation in Shaker?
A couple more seconds for people. It looks like the majority of people have weighed in. Okay, it looks like that's what we're going to get. Good. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to share the results here.
Okay, thanks, Kara. Looks like we got a pretty diverse feelings here between satisfied and dissatisfied. So thanks everyone for participating. So I'm going to focus here after looking at the high level full city view of Parks and Recreation, the 4 sites that we're looking at as part of this plan. These sites include the STJ Community Building Quadrant around the library, Charlton Park, located in the southwest corner near Lee Road, Shaker Heights Middle School, and Thornton Park. Charlton Park is 5 acres and it's the smallest of the sites that we're looking at. The amenities here include a playground, youth basketball hoop, multi-purpose field. But then one of the key elements here is the potential expansion of the park into the bus depot and or the city-owned lot to the north. We know the Lee Road Action Plan sort of highlighted this, and it also, the city is currently looking at relocating the bus depot. So we've included those sites as part of the larger Chelton area to sort of think about how visioning would look like for this site. The second site is the STJ Community Building Quadrant, which includes the library, the STJ building itself, the colonnade area at the corner of Lee and Van Aken roads, the all-world playground behind the library, and the multi-purpose field along Chagrin Road. The third site is Thornton Park, one that a lot of us are very familiar with, that contains the pool, the ice rink, tennis courts, the sledding hill, and other amenities, including a basketball court, skate park, and playground. And the largest of the 4 sites is the Shaker Heights Middle School, which provides a great opportunity for rethinking recreation in the city of Shaker Heights. This includes the middle school, which we know will be closed in a few years, the median fields and trail to the north, the track and field, and the multi-purpose fields all the way to the east. Here we're showing the 4 sites all at the same scale to really give people an idea of the different sizes of each site. We know the middle school is the largest at 33 acres, with Chelton Park being the smallest. And here we're meant to show a highlight. Some of these parks will function in different ways. Thornton Park currently functions as a community destination where all people from Shaker go there to utilize the pool, the ice rink, or other amenities and features, whereas other items like Chelton Park may be considered more neighborhood focused and have a different set of amenities when we think about long-term recreations and the opportunity for Shaker Heights Middle School to potentially be another large community destination for all residents in Shaker. So some site-specific observations when looking at those sites. We know Thornton Pool and Ice Rink are great assets and are a good location, but we know these items may require significant capital investment in the future. So really here, as part of this plan, we're thinking about how could these be re-envisioned or repurposed in their current location or potentially elsewhere throughout the community. The middle school site in a community like Shaker Heights, where it's fully built out, is a great opportunity to create an innovative community-wide recreation destination. It's not many times that you get 33 acres to rethink recreation in a community like Shaker Heights. We know Chelton is a key asset for the Moreland neighborhood and was a key element of the Lee Road Action Plan and has potential to leverage improvements to Lee Road to really create a fantastic and dynamic park. The STJ community building, we know, does not function that well as a recreation facility, considering that it was a former library. So the layout is not really conducive to recreation programming activities. So one of the things we want to look at this plan is how can we rethink the STJ community building so it really functions as a recreation and programming destination. So now we're going to turn it over to engagement overview. Before I do that, I'd like to ask one more poll question. In the past year, at which of the previous 4 sites have you or a member of your family participated in a recreational activity?
For some reason, try this again. It's not letting me launch that one. We may need to come back to that one. Why don't we just keep on going?
We'll keep going. So the mayor mentioned community engagement in his intro, and we think this is a key and valuable component of this process. So what we try to do is cast as broad a net as possible and reach as many people in the community using various outreach measures. We had online methods, which included a project website that had a mapping activity and a vision board. And then we also have been participating in in-person engagement through advisory groups, stakeholder interviews, pop-up nets that have been happening throughout the summer throughout the community, and also tomorrow night with our first public meeting and future public meetings in the fall. Our in-person engagement starts with our advisory group. As I mentioned, this was a group of volunteers that were willing to participate in the process. We've completed 2 meetings to date with this group, which has a total of 19 participants. And during these meetings, we've asked them a variety of questions about, what they like about Shaker Parks, what they'd like to see in Shaker Parks, and what their overall vision would be for some of these sites throughout the community. Following up on the advisory group, we've done a lot of stakeholder interviews with various folks in and around the community. As I mentioned before, these folks represent sports leagues, civic institutions, and residents who share common interest in the plan. These could be individuals that are focused on events and sports facilities that take place at the ice rink, at pools, on athletic fields, or other groups that include senior adults, youths, and other neighborhood residents. We had 12 different groups and with 60 participants and had a series of interviews with them over a 2-week period. We also did a lot of in-person engagement with pop-up events throughout the community. Hopefully some of the people on this call had saw us at some of these events or participated in these events throughout the community, whether they're at Van Aken, Chelton Park, the pool, or at the library. At these in-person engagements and utilizing the online map, what we tried to ask people was what existing park facilities you would want to keep at each one of the FAR sites, what existing facilities will you want to update. Maybe something works pretty well, but you'd like to see it refreshed and updated to a modern facility. And then also, what big ideas do you have for Parks and Recreation in Shaker? Are there any innovative ideas you'd really like to focus on or really think we should take a look at, whether it's at Thornton Park, at the middle school, at Chelton, or STJ Center? And this is just a quick sample of what some of those pop-up engagements looked like throughout the community, both at Van Aken Library, Chelton Park, and within the Moreland neighborhood. We also did online engagement, creating a project website. Hopefully you have visited. Here we created a lot of different information to give some background on the site, including overview, what the 4 sites looked like, provided project updates, and also included an interactive map and vision board. The vision board on the project website was really just an open-ended question just for people to provide us feedback and thoughts and ideas of what they would like to see with Parks and Recreation around in Shaker, including the 4 specific sites that I mentioned before. We had over 203 comments and 600 people posted thumbs up or likes on previous comments that were posted online. We included a mapping exercise that again followed up with the engagement exercise that focused on those 3 elements of what we'd like to keep, what we would like to update, and what innovative or big ideas you have throughout the city and at these 4 project sites. You can kind of see a sampling of the dots that people placed in and around the map in the image to the right. So before we go on the results of those engagement, I got one last poll question here.
We're having some problem with the polls, Michael. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, no worries.
So we're gonna skip over this, but just if you haven't provided feedback yet, we'd really love to hear from you. So please look for some of those opportunities or join us tomorrow. So we'll go on to what we've been hearing throughout this process. So as we reviewed at the beginning of this presentation, there's a 12-month process, but of that, a significant component of this process is obtaining community feedback and really listening to residents and hearing what their needs are for not only now, but into the future. And so we'll start with a summary of what we've heard from the stakeholder interviews and advisory group. So you can see here, part of our job is to kind of sift through the things that are rising to the top, the themes that we're hearing across these groups. And you can see some of those are here on the screen. So looking to coordinate with the school district and the city, looking for more space and times for activities, programming for areas for teens, seniors, and those not in sports. I was in those stakeholder groups. There was a lot of ideas generated about where and when can we provide these opportunities for those groups. Maintenance and field usage and the condition and the equipment that's provided, really starting to branch out and providing offerings kind of similar to that previous theme for a more inclusive group of residents to be able to use these spaces. And then, as Michael mentioned, we had an online vision board and also in-person card comments. So you were able to provide kind of open-ended commentary on a wide variety of opportunities. So you're seeing, again, here's some of the themes that are floating to the top. More senior activities during the day, strength training, pickleball, true recreation center, areas for athletic fields that also provide shade for visitors and spectators, families, indoor and outdoor pickle courts and new tennis courts, and also looking at the possibility for indoor pools. And so we've been sifting through all of that information, reviewing all of the comments, putting it through matrices and putting it through evaluation in terms of what are the key themes that are floating to the top and what are the key amenities and facilities that we need to start looking at. So you can see here, this is the breakdown of the top mentions. Recreation center is at the top, followed by outdoor pool, fields and courts, and ice rink. And then we also, close behind those, the next top 4, indoor pool, pickleball, turf fields, and dog park. These are the kind of trending themes across all of the engagement sessions. And so we also had that mapping exercise. You were able to do it either online or in person, where we took specific feedback about each of the sites. And these engagements received over 500 pins and 300 thumbs up and votes for kind of promoting those ideas to the front. And so we've heard about each of these individual parks. Fall into those buckets that Michael outlined in keep, update, or innovate. So for Chelton Park, what we're hearing is that we really like the open field, the baseball field, the shade trees, and the neighborhood mural. Things that could use some updating, improving the multi-use field that's at the site, expanding the basketball courts, and providing just some general maintenance. And then innovating, thinking big and connecting to the Lee Road Action Plan, providing teen programming potentially at this site, adding grills, and possibly adding a different program like performance space. At the STJ Community Building Quadrant, you can see lots of love for the library here. The green space and the playground are also really loved assets, and the colonnade for performance. Some things that are looking to be updated, adding benches and making the field more accessible, making it possibly a year-round opportunity, and maintenance for the field to make it more usable. And for innovation, looking at youth focus, indoor-outdoor field house, potentially we also heard, in addition to kind of traditional recreation, some of the programming needs that were around the community, so classes, meeting rooms, arts and music programs, and then potentially adding basketball courts and other types of courts at the site. Thornton Park, so here we're thinking a little bit larger, we have more space. This is a community asset, so love the outdoor pool, like the location and the size, and obviously the sledding hill, which is really a fantastic asset for the community. Updating, as we know, both from the comments and also just from the facilities assessments that have been done, that the ice rink is in need of updating, and also as part of that kind of new facility understanding, looking at the exercise rooms, updating some of the facilities within it, and adding other kind of changing facilities as well. The pool, while it's also something that was kind of voted highly, it needs a transition area, potentially a splash pad, and better changing facilities. And access to the park and parking was another comment that was voted for updating here. Innovate, looking at all-inclusive playgrounds, looking to expand pickleball courts potentially at this community garden, and possibly a rec or community center here with additional programming. And then finally, our largest site, we have the Shaker Heights Middle School. We had a wide variety of ideas for this site across all of our engagement, given the size and scope and breadth of this. So there are some physical facilities on this site. The auditorium is viewed as a great space for events. The green space and fields with the potential for making it feel more park-like. Updating, again, you're hearing the themes, fields that can withstand more use, and potentially an indoor, or updating the indoor pool. And then innovating, this is another site that could be a potential rec hub or rec facility, indoor, outdoor sports, pools, classes, programming is really starting to make this a center of draw for facilities across the community. more ideas about pickleball courts and also dog park at this space. So that's what we heard. Hopefully you're starting to hear some of the same things we are in terms of themes that the community is really bringing to the forefront. This is a really important part of this process, really getting this engagement, hearing what people need. This is how we start to organize recommendations for the sites and what we'll be coming back to you with. So tonight's one opportunity. There will be another event tomorrow. So we have our public meeting tomorrow night with an in-person activity that starts at 6:30 p.m. at the STJ building. We're wrapping up the pop-up events. There's one more scheduled right now for August 10th, noon to 4, so another in-person opportunity. Once we start to wind down the engagement portion of this project, we will be moving into an engagement summary and really being able to report out what we've heard, what were the themes that really kind of wrapped up our engagement sessions. We'll take that information and develop conceptual park plans. And you'll see from the activity tomorrow that starts with you all. And then bring that back to the community at our next public meeting event, which is planned for late fall. And so as a little teaser for tomorrow's event, we will be doing an in-person activity at the event, as well as having kind of an introduction to the project again, and as well as some boards and information around the building. But the activity will be actually allowing you, the community, to start to lay out some of this program and see how it fits on the sites and start to mix and match what you'd like to see and what would be good facilities and provisions for the community, not only now, but through the future, and really kind of starting to take a look at that as designers yourselves. So excited to work with you on that and look forward to seeing people tomorrow. So that wraps up our presentation. Oh, sorry, Kara, you wanna?
No, that's fine. We'll Joyce, I would again encourage everybody, if you have a question, to go to the Q&A icon on your screen that has a question mark on it. You can type your question there and we'll read it and answer it live. Also on the screen, you can see the website as well as my email address. So if it's easier for you to go to the project website or to email me directly with your comments, feel free to do that. Joyce, do you want to read the first question?
Yes, so there is a question asking if we can define exactly what is considered within the scope of park and recreation, and are green spaces around schools, urban community spaces considered in these discussions? And I will answer that question, I believe. So as you heard in the presentation, this plan is focused on 4 sites: the middle school, Thornton, STJ Community Building, and Shelton. But we also have the ability to look at 2 other sites. And so based on what we're hearing, we may add 2 other sites, and that can include green spaces or urban spaces. So we have not decided yet if we're going to add those 2, but we can consider any of those. The second question is, can we have more pickleball courts? Michael, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is most definitely yes. I think through this process, what we're trying to do is identify where pickleball courts make the most sense. And if we do add pickleball courts, we're adding it in the right location, at the right time, in the right place, with the right amount. So I think, we were going to look at pickleball courts as part of the larger, suite of recreation options, from playgrounds to tennis to basketball, along with some of the other elements that we talked about. So I encourage you to join us tomorrow, and you can have a chance to sort of lay out where you think those pickleball courts fit, or where they could potentially go in any one of the 4 sites.
We've got another question. It says, will the overarching objective be to create a state-of-the-art facilities like Beechwood's new playground, or will we be content with facilities that are just okay?
And I can answer that one. So the objective is, if we are building new facilities or renovating, they will be state-of-the-art facilities, and not just okay facilities. And as many people know, if you build something that's state of the art today, in a decade, it may just be okay. So, but we would like to start off as state of the art. The next question is, how is Shaker planning to finance improvements in recreation facilities? And our recreation director, Alex Nichols, is here and can help with that one.
Yes, at this time, we do not have any finite plans, to finance these improvements. What we do know is that as a part of this plan, we will have, estimated probable cost for the facilities. And once we have that information, then the city will begin discussions on methods in which these facility improvements can be financed.
Thank you. The last question we have is, will indoor pickleball courts be considered? And of course, they'll be considered. It will really depend on if there is consensus that indoor facilities, new indoor facilities would be built. And because the facilities we have right now indoor are not conducive to indoor active sports such as pickleball or tennis or basketball. So that will depend on what we hear and the outcome of all these meetings, and it will be considered.
We have another question that just came in. I am concerned about the impact on traffic flow if the middle school is transformed into a recreation hub. Will the planning take account of such impact?
And I can answer that one. So if anything substantial is built on the middle school site, our city does require this to be approved through the Planning Commission, as well as other boards and commission and city council. And as part of those approvals, a traffic study would be required to complete site plan review. And so traffic will be considered. We have many options around the middle school. We have Fayette Road. We have the impact that the library has or shared space with the library. So it would be all those factors will be taken into account in terms of traffic flow if the middle school is transformed into a recreation hub.
Great. Another question is, and I think I can probably answer this to start with, and if anybody else has anything, please weigh in. Will there be a dedicated portion of the planning for the senior and or elderly community? And I can say that we had a senior stakeholder group meeting, as well as we had a senior pop-up before a senior movie at STJ. And so we are encouraging, seniors to weigh in on their needs. We've had that so far, but if you know members of your community who have ideas about what they would like to see, please feel free to send them my email or have them call City Hall and they can put me through, and I'm happy to talk on the phone as well.
And I would just add that we have seen an increase in requests for senior adult programming since the pandemic. And this is certainly something that we are paying attention to as a part of this recreation strategic plan and existing programming at this time.